Hey, welcome to Automate Live. We're here during day 2 of Automate. My name is Chris Luecke, host of Manufacturing Happy Hour. I'm joined by my co-host for this conversation, Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, and a favorite joint interview guest of ours.
Favorite?
We have had multiple conversations with you over the years, and we'll certainly reference some of those. We have Jerry Perez, Manager of Business Development from Fanuc. Welcome back, Jerry.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Always good to chat with you. Jake, I believe you have a great question to kick this off.
I look back, I always look forward to these conversations because when you're able to talk to a person year over year over year, you kind of get a great time capsule of what has happened previously, what's changing, where are the trends that you're seeing.
In addition to my gray hair, That's what happened.
Probably the silver fox. You're looking better year over year. We'll have to get a time lapse for that.
I'll take that. Thank you.
But when we look at the manufacturing state right now, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to, should I automate? Why should I leverage robotics? And in my belief is the best time to automate is now, because it's never going to be cheaper in the future. You're always going to have a better cost of value and return for those who automate early. So what are you hearing right now in the industry on why we should still be leveraging robotics and automation in an unknown time of what the next 6 months could look like?
Sure. Well, see, a couple of things you said there, right? Why start now? Times of uncertainty. People aren't moving. There's something you said that wasn't, or something you didn't say that was said in there somewhere. People aren't doing stuff, and they probably should do automation, right? Here's my take on that over the last few years is we still have the labor problem. And I'm not saying labor shortage, because that's kind of that was what everyone was talking about a few years ago. But that labor that we didn't have never came back. The skill sets for companies to just deploy something in a time of uncertainty is, I'm going to say, extrapolated with, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
It's always at some of our talks, I'm sure you guys get that question of, well, where do I start? And when people still don't have that experience of, especially in times of uncertainty, well, where should I start? So it becomes extrapolated, this fear, this barrier of going forward. So what does that mean? Like what we've seen is, like from our standpoint, from the industry and robotics, our integrators, our suppliers, is how do we make these packages easier for people to deploy? So Cobots, right? Everybody loves them. They're easy. Put it in, and an hour later you're started, right? Well, right. So, so I don't want to take away from that message. I still want people to have that sense and belief of this is easier or simpler maybe than traditional automation. So it's accessible, right? My talk this week was really about accessibility of automation. In times of uncertainty, I need to have things really be simple. I just had a conversation with a new technology supplier, and we're talking about how come this hasn't taken off yet. Yeah. We've done all these demonstrations, these proof of concepts. And one thing I was asking for is, do we have yet that list of things somebody buys with the instruction manual for how to set it up, with the YouTube videos for how do I plug it in, power up, start my first programs? People need that. Yeah. That's why people can learn to play guitar easily or learn a new language, because they've got these kits, these packages that make it super easy to deploy. So what would I say? Yes, in theory, you want to deploy something now, even in times of uncertainty. It's not going to get better anytime soon. So to be competitive, sure. So all the same logic that we would all common sense wise say, keep going. Yeah. Do that. But I think where you want to look now is what packages, if you were investigating here on the floor of Automate, you want to ask somebody, can you show me your manual? Do you have online training available for this thing? Mm-hmm. That's what people want today, because you would have this lower skill set. I need to supplement that with easy to use kits and programs.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Would you say that over the past 3 years since our last conversation, that is a more cohesive part of an offering now than it was 3 years ago?
It's starting to be. I'll say it's starting to be, and here's what you start to see. I like the different examples of the Apple iPod first came out. Mm-hmm. Not everybody bought it. A little bit expensive maybe, but what came out right after that were hundreds of these other MP3 players people could buy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which one do I choose? I'm not sure. Now, this is a really simple example. I probably shouldn't use it as an analogy, but what we've definitely seen over the last 2 years, particularly every trade show, you see more of these cobots on a stand with the gripper, with some sensor tool to make it low code, no code programming capable, right? That more accessible type technology packages. We've seen them come out of the woodworks. It's like every integrator and their brother has one.
Yeah.
So now the challenge becomes, well, how do I pick that? Hence my question, my tips for interviewing those companies. Do you have show me your manual, how do you recover from faults, blah, 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 show me your packaging kits. So they're coming out, and I say we're starting to, because you can go on different robot OEMs websites and you'll start to see us as the robot OEM start to work with our partners and say, here's ones we might recommend that really are packaged and ready, truly like fast to deploy. So we're starting to catalog that because it's on us, I think, to kind of cull the herd a little bit and see, here's the ones that really are ready to go, ready to deploy quickly.
You mentioned the skills gap in your first answer. Can you share an example of, doesn't need to be a specific company, right? But a story that illustrates how an organization that is deploying robotics, automation, adopting robotics and automation is successfully starting to fill that skills gap?
Sure. So... All right. I'm going to say two things. Here's what it looks like when the gap isn't filled. Okay. And there's this saying called you don't know, right? What does that mean? I'm not sure everybody knows what that means, but there's something you don't know and you don't even see, you don't see. It's your blind spot, right? It's like, I can't see how many fingers I'm holding up, although I know how many fingers I'm holding them up, right? But you can't see it. Somebody who's never deployed automation has those blind spots. For example, an example came up in the talk this week of somebody didn't realize they had to cycle power, right? It wasn't in the manual to get their robots and peripherals communicating. They set up IP addresses, wasn't nowhere stated to cycle power. But that's this is a very general thing. A lot of people in automation would understand that, right?
1,000%.
So that's something you don't know, and then you've got those hurdles. Now that's the most simplest example of something they don't have that skill set, that knowledge, trying to deploy automation. That becomes a barrier. That becomes, that in addition to which tooling do I pick? Oh, I forgot to really set up how much parts I need in my queue to run 4 hours of production. What do I do if the system stops? How do I set up my lights? I mean, all these things that somebody has experienced just knows to do, right?
1,000%.
But you have those barriers stack on top of each other, or I say in barriers, kind of like hitting a wall. Oh man, let me pick myself back up again. That difficulty level of learning something new, right? Okay, so some of the challenges, picturing that. Now, how do we have somebody do it successfully? Don't start with hard. Some of the same logic we say over year, go for the low-hanging fruit. But now we can pair the low-hanging fruit with, I say, Cobot fast-to-deploy pre-packages.
Yeah.
So instead of having those list of things somebody may not know, the DIYers, that might work for a large company. I'm part of an organization. I might have, say I'm the automation specialist because I have 5 years of experience, but now I'm in charge of this role in this group. Well, where do I go? Work with partners. There's more of us out here today have these pre-packages. So you don't have so many of those barriers that you're going to have to bump through. Don't start with a $2 million project. Where can I deploy some retrofittable pick-and-place applications, right? Try not to, start with the hard.
You're highlighting the value behind partnerships. I think one of the biggest things where companies are so apprehensive to deploying robot solutions is because it is all those little unknowns that add up that can either make a project successful or make a project leave a really bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah.
And it's going to take another change in leadership to look at, we should look at automation. We should look at robots again. So why Fanuc has a incredible integrator and partner network through ASI.
Yeah.
And you work with a lot of those companies directly, with you being a manager within business development. What excites Fanuc the most about you working with your partners and how your partners are out there finding solutions to problems that the industry is asking for, or even going out there and finding great solutions and then showing the industry, hey, you probably didn't even know this was a problem for you, but look at what we can do now. Let's talk.
Sure. I wish everybody was out there finding solutions. I really do. I wish it was like that. Sometimes it seems like you might solve a problem for one customer, and it's just a business case.
Yeah.
How do I then replicate that? Then I might try and market it. These no-code, low-code type solutions, right? Somebody makes an interface with a wizard that's easy to set something up. I might do that for one customer. Now I kind of have something that's 50% of a product. So if I'm going to say, did the industry know that they need wizards and configurators to set up their system? So it's not programming.
Yeah.
Probably not. But we see the integrators who comes with these solutions and takes the time to create these easy to deploy packages. And then the industry says, no, we definitely want that. Now, we're always going to have I'm an engineer, or I used to be an engineer, not sure I can say this anymore, but that whole, it wasn't designed here, It wasn't my idea. If really the engineer is able to set that aside for a moment, work with partners who've just seen what's worked, whether that's an easy to use interface or new technology like scan to path. I say it's new technology. It's more mature technology. It's not so new anymore, right? But now it's mature. Those integrators who saw new things years ago, solving challenges, now we're at a point where it's now more mature. They have examples, videos they can deploy. They've scraped their knees, they bumped their elbows, and now you're better as an end user to adopt that technology now.
And add on that real quickly, I think, you learn those stories, you learn those trials and tribulations from what you learn. But the great part about that is if you're able to pass on what you learn, it's just a continued value that you as a business development manager bring, because you can say, I saw a company do that and it didn't work. Here's a better way to do it.
Absolutely. That value of bringing on somebody who this is what we do day in, day out. Yeah. So I start my talks now with the assertions and assumptions I think about my audience, right? I really do. And I'm surprised still to this day how many people they've started or stopped. Automation is still new for them, right? It's like 60 or 85% of the companies, manufacturing companies, are 100 people or less.
Yeah.
Right, in the U.S., that's incredible. And a lot of them still haven't deployed automation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of assumptions we have still today that I think we get surprised by. We still have to, make things easier.
One thing I'm taking away from this conversation so far is, what does it take for a successful deployment in this day and age? And I'm putting together like a little equation. Yeah. You talked about how there are more tools, manuals, guides. It's easier to set up. There's faster deployment, ease of setup. There's low-hanging fruit applications. Start with the low-hanging fruit applications, which is what I'm going to get back to. You also talk about now there are examples of success from you and your partners. So go back to those low-hanging fruit applications. For the folks out there that are listening, that are trying to get started, you mentioned like retrofittable pick-and-place applications. That's one. Are there a couple other low-hanging fruit applications folks should be looking for?
Sure. So I'm going to say this first, right? Because it's, this application will be like, but our type of that application is difficult. Mm-hmm. If you look at how you do your production, I saw this from a blog post. Guy had an XY chart. I had to be engineerial about it, right? It had simple to hard, easy to it's easy to hard, simple to complex.
Yeah.
Pick and place was like in this easy and simpler area, right? Look at your application today and ask your operators, tell me how many steps does it take for them to do that job?
Yeah.
If there's a lot of steps, that's my technical term, that might not be something you want to, classify as something low-hanging fruit. If there's a few steps to do that process, look at it manually first, and then, the less steps there is, the less components I have to utilize to finish that process, that's going to be your low-hanging fruit. Instead of saying, because there'll be some processes where sanding itself, it's a finesse, could be a finesse art type process, but I might just be doing flat panels all day, which is a lot easier than doing carbon fiber, 3D complex objects, right? But I don't want to just say sanding, right? So I look at it as your manual process, how many steps does it take to do that, how many materials you need to use that as your judge, not just, that looks easy, because even what somebody's doing, you look at them do something, and man, that's super easy.
Yeah.
And my other tip is watch that production line for more than just 3 minutes, because what somebody might be doing for 3 minutes, all of a sudden they might be doing something completely different.
From a different operator, a different shift.
Totally.
Understand the amount of variability that exists in manufacturing is incredible.
Right.
And it's stressing that. Well, we have to wrap up time here. Jerry Perez, the manager of business development here at Fanuc America. It's always a pleasure. It's always great to have the conversations on the change that's happening in the industry and how people should still be optimistic, how robots and automation are going to make jobs better, make the way that people work in manufacturing better, and technology is a really exciting.
It is, and it's more affordable today. There's financing options, monthly payments. There really are less reasons for people to get started.
Yeah.
So contact an expert for us to help you find that path to go.
So if you're here this week, go ahead, visit Fanuc in person. And of course, one of their service providers, you guys are all over the world.
Yeah.
It will not be hard to find someone who could help you deploy a Fanuc solution.
Awesome. Thanks,
Jerry,
fellas.
Thanks
Chris
a ton,
Luecke
Jerry.
as well. Jake Hall, we'll see you guys next.